The puck is about to drop on your favorite all-Canadian hockey podcast. Without further ado, here are your co-hosts, Mick and Grant. Enjoy Canada Puck! Hey guys, welcome to the Canada Puck Podcast, your weekly recap of what's going on in the world of hockey, specifically in Canada. And we talk a little bit more about the Scotia North Division, but not really. We just kind of do that. So I'm your co-host, Mick. You can find me on Profit Mick. And I'm joined every episode by my lovely, talented, and voluptuous co-host.
Disease-free, maybe?
Hey, all right.
Grant, on Twitter at Fourth Line Sports. And I decided I'm going to take a new approach to, seeking sponsorship. And that is, I'm just going to start shouting out random companies until somebody decides to give us money for our podcast material. Right. But I swear to God, if it results in a cease and desist letter before we get money, I'm going to lose my shit. So this episode is brought to you by Caramel Pepsi.
Ooh, that looks nice. I like the Japanese on it. That's legit.
So this one, I went back specifically to get the lychee Pepsi, which I found last time at the grocery store, which was the absolute tits, like hands down best. All sold out, but they have this caramel one. Not as, flavorful, or maybe it's like the flavor profile caramel Pepsi doesn't really go well together, but lychee Pepsi, if you see it out there, you gots to pick it up.
Lychee, like it's made of leeches?
Lychee, those little prickly fruits? It's like a super common Asian flavor. And it's got the sweetness to it, kind of like this earthy berry flavor. Oh, so good. Lychee. Yeah. I'm praying that there's a Japanese soda enthusiast who listens to our podcast and like, oh, I can do Grant a favor, and I can provide him with the lychee Pepsi.
I'll have to add that to the tags on the YouTubes. Hey, I'm on top today. I just realized that, because normally I do this, but then I was like, oh, where are you? Oh, you're down there. Hello.
Reverse cowgirl style or something today.
Yeah, you gotta switch it up a little bit. Switch it up. Obviously, yeah, it's how we roll. So, cool. Rocking my Russell Wilson jersey today because there was some terrible rumors that he was going to get traded, and I was like, oh no. So, it might be the last time it's ever truly representative of the man, the myth, the legend himself. So
that sucks. I just bought a Russell Wilson jersey at a thrift store for like $6 the other day.
Shoot. Well,
maybe skyrocketing in value now, maybe.
There we go. Yeah, I'm throwing these vintage. Like, if you're ever interested, I got a closet full of them. So if this is your first show, we're going to run through some headlines. We're going to do kind of in honor of the NBA All-Star team that was selected this last week. An NBA All-Star weekend that's happening next weekend in Atlanta in the NBA. This is a hockey show. We're going to run through kind of our projected All-Star line. The NHL is not having an All-Star game this year, which is a total shame. What a complete and utter shambles that is. But it would probably conflict with the whole bubble system they got going on, so probably not a good idea. Anyway, we're going to give you that. We have some gambling advice, some fantasy advice. See what else we get up to. It's going to be a good time.
It's all exciting. He's underselling the excitement of every fucking segment. It's all going to be
sentence. So we'll start looking at the standings courtesy of NHL.com. I was going to try something else today, but then I didn't. So we start all the way at the bottom, scroll down, we get Honda West. What's going on in the Honda West this week?
Well, what did happen? Arizona, actually. Arizona had two comebacks. Granted, they were versus the Ducks, but I think they scored 6 goals, so 3 goals in each game in the last 5 minutes of the third period. And they almost duplicated that last night against the Colorado Avalanche, where they scored, I think it was 2 goals in the last 8 minutes. They ended up losing 3-2, but put up a valiant effort. Obviously not a sustainable way of winning games, and when you take a look at Arizona's metrics, it's actually quite concerning. So they're probably lucky to have the 9 wins they do have. Maybe put Arizona on your fade radar, but entertaining hockey nonetheless.
Sweet. I'd be remiss if I did not talk about the Canada Puck Shine that we put on the outdoor classic or outdoor game last week, the Lake Tahoe game. As we were signing off, we were telling you've got to watch this Vegas, Colorado outdoor affair. It's going to be glorious. It looks beautiful. And the Sun took our advice, decided that midway through the first that it would melt the ice and put it on a 9-hour delay. So the game picked up again at midnight Eastern time, 10 o'clock our time. And there you go. It was Sorry?
And the best part about that story though is the start time. Like they're like, oh yeah, we'll pick things back up at 10 o'clock or midnight Eastern. Like this is supposed to showcase the showcase game of the NHL for the whole season. And people in the Western time zone are already asleep by then. Like, what are they thinking?
Yeah, no idea. I mean, it was kind of, it was not great. If you had taken the over in that game, I'm sorry, but
is that a dig? Fuck you, Mick. I stand by that over. It would have been a fine over if
I was racing to my phone. And I made a detour into the bathroom rather than going to the phone that was on the charger. And by the time I came out, the game started, and I was kicking myself. And I was mad. And I watched that first period, and I was like, man, there's going to be nothing but mad scoring. And then there was a 10-hour delay on the game. And I was like, all right, maybe thank you, Bowels.
But there was a trend that will lead us straight into the NHL. What's the East Division sponsor? Mass Mutual East, because Boston, Philadelphia picked up exactly where I thought the outdoor games were going to leave off. And there was 10 goals. I think there was 6 goals in the second period or something like that. And Boston just ran away with it. They figured things out. They learned their lesson. That game actually started, I think it was regular time, maybe 5 or 7, something like that. They wanted to make sure that the ice was in good condition. But that game had the offense that I was expecting in the Colorado Avalanche game or Colorado Vegas game that we probably would have got if it stayed on time.
Sweet. Well, that was a good segue. Let's just keep on rolling. How about the Discover Central? Anything going on in the Discover Central?
Well, we need to talk about how the Florida Panthers are leading that division, because that seems to have come out of nowhere.
Yep.
And it's not even that they're not supposed to be there or we're expecting them to fall off, because when you look at their metrics, when you look at the team that Florida is, how they play the game, they are a good defensive hockey team, and they've put some impressive opponents on ice, for lack of a better word, when they're playing them. They just managed to shut down everybody, and that is Bobrovsky hasn't even hit his stride yet. They're relying on this Chris Strider character who's been stealing the show and ride the hot hand. Maybe hopefully Bobrovsky sorts his shit out. He can start stopping a few pucks, but if that is the case and we do get vintage Bobrovsky later in the season, who's going to stop Florida? If we get Columbus Blue Jackets level or caliber Bobrovsky, I just don't see how this team's getting beat.
Yeah, I mean, unless Tampa Bay's playing at that kind of elite level, it does seem like a little bit of an open division, right? Kind of when you think into the playoffs going forward. So yeah, I don't know. I believe in Carolina for some reason.
One thing worth noting in that division, Dallas plays Tampa today in a rematch of last season's Stanley Cup Finals.
Nice. I might be touching on that one later. So Discover Central, I'm all over you. But now to the meat and potatoes. The reason you're joining us, the only reason people even care about hockey, is the Scotia North. Good time. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to roll through a little bit. If a news story does not jump out at us, or any talking points, we're essentially going to assemble an all-star lineup so we can kind of go through. We have to pick at least one representative from each team, so you can't just stack all the Montreal Canadiens in there and then just make that your team, because that's unfair, because that offense is too dynamite. So start at the bottom. As always, the Ottawa Senators. What's going on with the Ottawa Senators? Do we have any highlights this week? Or who is your all-star pick for the Ottawa Senators?
Kind of sad news to kind of lead things off, but it'd probably be worth mentioning. They had this super fan, Brian Fraser, cancer patient, passed away this year. They're doing some sort of fundraiser today. I believe it was kind of a pledge drive where you say for every goal that Brady Tkachuk scores, we're going to donate $10 or something along those lines. So today, the game against the Flames, that puck drops here shortly, that is kind of in honor of Brian Fraser. And I think there's some good fundraising initiatives that are being used to kind of spread awareness on that game. So, heartfelt condolences to Brian Fraser and his family. Hopefully the Sens do him proud today against the Flames. As far as All-Stars go, I really hummed and hawed on this one because there's one guy who's just been like dynamite the last little while, and that is Drake Batherson. I think he's got goals in 5 of his last 7. He's kind of creeping his way onto the score sheet all over the place, but I just had to go with Tkachuk on this one.
Right.
Brady Tkachuk's been the guy. He kind of like, for a young kid, he's really a solid piece to that team. So Brady Tkachuk's my all-star from the Sens.
All right, nice. Yeah, for myself, I think they're on a little bit of a streak too. I don't know. Is there like a last 10? They've won 3 games in a row. They kicked the Flames' butts the other night. They beat up on the Montreal Canadiens, which is a bad look, Montreal. You don't want too much of that. So we'll see tonight. I think, I don't know, I can't imagine that extends too far into the 4s or 5s, so I'm betting against the Ottawa Senators at this point in time. For myself, I like Thomas Chabot. I think he's kind of one of those centerpieces. He looks like he's kind of the real deal between him and Eric Brandstrom. Is that right? Not Eric Gudbranson. I think it's just Branson. Looks like they've got some solid pieces on defense, and I'm going to reward his play this season by giving him a nod as an all-star. So there you go.
Here we go. We actually made it through a Sens segment talking about Ottawa. Good for us.
It's kind of strange. It's moving on. I got up to number 6. Grant was so right, not believing in this team. I was so wrong. The Vancouver Canucks. Oh boy, Vancouver! Like, he just couldn't let us down anymore, eh?
The best part about all this is, like, my analysis is spotty at best, but I kind of feel proud about my preseason analysis on the Canucks, and that is they remain a defensive liability. Holtby's not the guy. Demko's not the guy. So the one bright spot, I would say, though, is Quinn Hughes. That guy is just dynamite on the back end. He seems to make the right first pass every time. Smart, quick, checks all the boxes. Quinn Hughes, your Vancouver Canucks all-star.
Yeah, no, you echo my sentiments completely. My defense is basically built from the bottom up with Thomas Chabot and Quinn Hughes. Those are my 2 defensemen that are representing the Scotia North. So going for a lot of offense there. Vancouver. I mean, that game against Edmonton the other night, there was that Mike Smith save. I don't know if you saw that, where he kind of just flailed, laid on the puck, and the puck just sat on the goal line, just kind of like taunting the Vancouver Canucks. They really couldn't get anything going, a bunch of bad penalties. You don't want to take a bunch of dumb penalties against that power play in Edmonton, and a 3-0 result later, you're on a losing streak. So good job, Vancouver.
Can't help but think that maybe they used up all their puck luck at the end of last season, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean, we'll talk about a different Twitter maybe a little bit later on, but like Vancouver Canucks Twitter right now is a very dark place. There's guys digging up the stats. They're like, well, we've got, what is it, like Pedersen, Hughes, and they make something like $2.8 million combined or something like that, and this team is capped out. So have fun with that.
Yeah, God bless Louis Eriksson, I guess. But moving on.
All right. Number 5, we've got the Calgary Flames. They had an okay game earlier on against the Toronto. They got beat by Willie Nylander later on, and then they lost pathetically to the Ottawa Senators. What's going on, Calgary?
Yeah, Calgary seems to, I don't know what's going on there, but they just seem to have the worst luck as well. Mm-hmm. Like they from an advanced metrics perspective, they put together good games. When you look at the product on the ice, it's like a good quality product. Like they don't seem to miss too many assignments. But then they lose 7-1 to Edmonton for some reason, even though they dominate from an advanced perspective. So bad luck. They deserve better things. I don't know if they're on that end of the spectrum this season, or if we'll see some rebound from them later in the season. But I guess time will tell.
All right. Who's your all-star representative for the Calgary Flames?
So I went with Johnny Gaudreau. He felt like the right guy to back in this spot. I know that they have, Matthew Tkachuk's a guy that they rely on. Sean Monahan. Jacob Markstrom's been good, but I would say for what we've seen from the Calgary Flames, I think Johnny Gaudreau would be their all-star representative. So that's who I got.
All right. I don't think they impressed me that much this week, or they've been impressing me that much at all the last little while. The last 2 weeks anyways. So I'm going to give Markstrom. He might not even be my starting goalie, but one of the 2 goalies that I chose, Jacob Markstrom, made the call. So That's all you got. You got a goalie, and if you look at his kind of his metrics across the board, he's playing pretty well. David Rittich has just been just awful, absolutely just god awful this season. So there you go. Good job, Markstrom. And I'm also burning the Canucks by picking him. So boo boo, boo boo.
Double shot. I like it.
Yeah. On to the top though. You know, you're kind of like boring. Those teams, you know, they don't really do much for you. Now we get into the meat and potatoes. We get the Montreal Canadiens at number 4. Les Habitants, are they on a win streak? Are they on a lose streak? They're on a
losing streak.
One lose streak.
I think they've lost 6 of their last 7, something along those lines. And they obviously cost Claude Julien his job earlier this week. I think that was a terrible decision. What we've seen from Julien is like he's gotten the best out of the least with this team. And that is last year they left him high and dry, but they still managed to skate past the Penguins in the first round. This year, obviously, they added some pieces, but like the advanced metrics just kind of had them in a downward spiral over the last little while, and that was enough for Marc Bergevin to lower the axe. I think it was a big fuck up. Dominic Ducharme stepped in, excuse me, and Montreal had their hands down their worst game of the season. They blew a 2-goal lead twice in that game. They allowed the Winnipeg Jets, who have just been like god awful all season with allowing chances, to like appear to have some defensive structure, and offensively they had one of the worst performances. I think they had like 21 shots, 19 scoring chances. Like it was just a terrible performance. And you want the exact opposite to happen. Like when you fire your coach, you want to say, here, this is a message to the players, like you guys better ship up or ship out. And everybody just kind of fell flat on their face. And this Ducharme guy I'm not sold on. I think they should hire Gerard Gallant sooner rather than later, because if they leave Ducharme in charge too long, it's just going to implode. I know that they like French-speaking head coaches, but you know what? You got to move past that. You need a guy who's going to organize that team because they do have the pieces. So Gerard Gallant needs to be on the radar. He needs to be one of the first guys behind that bench as soon as possible. And if they don't, we might see this tailspin continue and Montreal just fall out of the playoffs.
Yeah, things don't look great. I mean, as we're at this point, based on just McDavid's performance from this last week, and I know that Vancouver got shut out a couple times, their offense looks like it's kind of just spinning its wheels just a little bit. I'm going to pull up my little Go Nucks Go mix picks and Go Abs Go Grant squad. I'm still up 5 points after this week. The Abs, this great offense, kind of just not really doing a lot. So I thought that would be a good time to kind of bring that up.
Yeah, that one. My biggest concern now is that now that Julian's gone, I'm worried that Ducharme's going to ruin everything that Julien built. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it doesn't come at my expense, but they still have 5 games in hand, so we'll see what happens. One thing that I omitted, my 2 All-Stars. I have 2 All-Stars on defense. Jeff Petrie, man. Like, this guy came out of nowhere. He's got to be at least 32 now. He's having a hell of a year, power play points, scoring goals. He shut down guy, like, he does it all. Jeff Petrie rounds out my defensive crew. And, like, I'm sorry that I have a man hard on for this guy, but I can't help myself. Carey Price has been terrible. This is more a boost of confidence for Carey than a nod to his actual performance. Like, Carey, I believe in you, man. You can get out there. You can do this. So, Carey Price is my all-star. Hoping for big things the rest of the way.
Nice. I want a little firepower up front. I'm going to go with Tyler Toffoli. He's got 12 goals on the season, and I think that deserves an all-star nod, especially on a team that doesn't score a lot. How many goals for do they have? 60. He's got 12 of those. So, I mean, like, he's hitting 20% of your goals is coming from the man Tyler Toffoli. So I think he could maybe light it up. And I want some, some high-scoring games in my all-star game. So
Tyler Toffoli. I had Toffoli. I crossed him off, though, because I couldn't have 3 halves. So right. I just couldn't.
Speaking of threes, we'll move to the 3 team in our standings. We get the Winnipeg Jets. It looks like business as usual. They're on a bit of a winning streak, or they just won 3 in a row. So good job, Le Jets.
I still can't figure this team out, Mick. Like, for the life of me, I don't know how they win hockey games. When you look at everything that they do, they should not have the wins that they do. And Connor Hellebuck steals games, and when Connor Hellebuck shit, the offense picks up. Like, it's just like this magical balancing act that they somehow continue to win games. And kudos to them. Maybe it's going to last long. Maybe they can ride this all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. Who knows? But I do have to shout out one guy, and he's your boy, Mark Scheifele. He's my all-star. I think he's got to be top 10 in the league in points. He's kind of does a little bit of everything offensively, and that is, he gets a lot of his starts in the attacking zone, power play minutes, but he does kind of fill in a complementary role defensively too, and that is he's not a liability. So I would say Mark Scheifele, without a doubt, is my Winnipeg Jets all-star.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I don't know. Maybe I really like what's going on in Winnipeg. I'm gonna praise Connor Hellebuyck, like granted, by giving him my starting goalie nod. So that kind of wraps up my goaltending tandem of Hellebuyck, Markstrom. I'm gonna give Scheifele, obviously one of the forward nods, and apparently I went a little crazy. Now I'm torn between two players, just based on point totals. We've got Brock Besser, who's got 22 points on the season at 9, but I kind of want to reward Blake Wheeler, who's got 20. He's right behind Besser. So I'm going to give 3 all-stars from your Winnipeg Jets because I don't know why they're as good as they are. I don't know why they have 3 all-stars, but they do. So Blake Wheeler, Mr. Scheifele, and Mr. Hellebuyck, which leaves 4 spots for the next 2 teams. So I wonder who I could have picked.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's no hiding who our top 4 selections are at this point. So bringing us up to number 2 on the list, we are looking at the Edmonton Oilers. Hell of a win streak, 5 in a row, 10 of the last 12. Team seems to be firing on all cylinders right now. They're getting that production from secondary, tertiary players. Like, we're seeing Kara scoring, we're seeing Archibald scoring, and like, those are, in years past, as an Oilers fan, those aren't names that we got comfortable with on the score sheet. So that's helping them a lot. They've seen, I think I did a little bit of a dive into it last night, 14 goals over the last 3 games from 7 different players. So that is, we are not just seeing McDavid light the lamp or Leon Draisaitl. We're seeing Chiasson, Archibald, the Ennis's. Like, we're getting balanced production, which is exactly what the McDavid Oilers needed for the last 6 years, is that balanced production. So great to see. Obviously, an all-star team wouldn't be an all-star team without McDavid on the line or on the team. I hummed and hawed about Leon Draisaitl. I ended up putting him on the list. I scratched off Toffoli, put Draisaitl. I just couldn't rationalize putting Toffoli ahead of Draisaitl because he's even making... Draisaitl is starting to be that... I call it a Steve Nash presence where he just makes people around him better. Like, when Dominic Cahoon is scoring 2 goals a game, or when Taylor Yamamoto is being recognized, like when he like jumps off because what he does on the ice, thanks to what the space that Draisaitl creates, like you kind of have to recognize that, not just skill, but also that presence. So Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, those are your NHL All-Stars from the Oilers.
I have those as my 1 and 2 All-Stars. So writing it down, I thought those were just pencil in. They're leading the league in points, as well as Draisaitl. That Vancouver game the other day, I was watching a replay in the morning while I was doing a workout, and just the amount of talking that he does, and kind of just leadership and just kind of promotion. Like before that Pujarvi power play goal late in the third there, like he was talking to him, and he was kind of trying to direct him and trying to teach him and not just tell him like, hey, go there. He was trying to explain to him like where I want you to be productive, right? And those are kind of those little intangible things you're not gonna see on the stat sheet, right? But I think it does pay off. So, and if you can make Jesse Pujarvi like relevant, good job, Leon.
I just got to build off that story, and that presence that we kind of both talked about, that how you saw Draisaitl talking to P2J, providing that guidance. I heard a funny story this week about Draisaitl and McDavid in the NHL bubble last year. So, friend of a friend did the catering, whatever. Apparently, there was an onions shortage. So that is, they were running out of onions, and that just got Connor McDavid bent out of shape. He was bent out of shape over these onions that weren't available. And Draisaitl actually had to calm him down. He's like, Connor, they're fucking onions. Like, what do you need all these onions for? So it was Draisaitl, that present, ever need to be talked off a ledge because there aren't enough of them, you maybe tweet Leon Draisaitl because he's got some sage wisdom on the matter.
There you go. Nice. Good job, Leon. What do onions fight off? Is there some type of like mystical creature? Like garlic, I think, is vampires. Onions, does that do like a werewolf?
I don't. Maybe I would like throw an onion in a zombie. Maybe he's worried about like the zombie apocalypse. Throw an onion, kind of.
Yeah, because like to be that passionate about Onion almost makes it seem like there is some type of like mystical being that he believes in, like the Loch Ness monster or something like that. He was thinking maybe he's like gonna go to Kelowna, and he's like, I don't want the Ogopoga near me at all. So he's like, I need onions.
I hope to God you're right. Just one more thing. I gotta say this because I think that there's actually some truth to this. They run out of Nutella. They ran out of Nutella in the Stanley Cup Finals, and Alexander Radulov had a sandwich, and like they ran out of Nutella, and it just so happens when they run out of Nutella, Alexander Radulov falls off a cliff. He can't be seen in the Stanley Cup Finals. So I'm convinced that Nutella owes Alexander Radulov a Stanley Cup.
There you go, Nutella. Pick up your game. Hazelnuts. What is that? Hazelnuts. On to the top team, though. Toronto Maple Leafs. Still there, still rocking. They had an interesting stat the other day, and they have kind of a projected 63-point threshold for the postseason. That's kind of their predictions right now. And they had like, what would your record have to be to get to that threshold or something like that? And the Maple Leafs need to go something like 12, whatever it is. And I was like, good job, Toronto. It's not often that like you're like coasting, you're looking good. I think they're playing pretty good hockey too, right? Outside of a couple blips, but it happens. They're professional sports. You're gonna lose. So they're up there. Austin Matthews, I put him on the list, and then just easily looking at the points leader, I think Mitch Marner deserves the nod as well.
Yeah, no disputing that.
Yeah.
The one thing that I noticed about the Leafs is how dominant. Like this is an organization that has embraced analytics before analytics was a thing. You always saw it in like post-game pressers. You'd see like little snippets of stuff in the background. You can kind of Hansel and Gretel your way to what they look for. Over the last 10 games, I think it was, they haven't been outplayed from an advanced perspective. So that is, they continue to dominate, and over 10 games, they have posted an expected goals for above 50% in every one of them, and that includes their most recent loss. So even when they have injuries, their backs are against the wall, they still outplay their opponents, and it really just boils down to running into a hot goaltender or running out of that magical fairy dust shooting powder that they have that has got both Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews onto my all-star team, and I don't think that there's any disputing either one of those names. No. One thing, they are up against it with injuries, so that is Frederik Andersen's out. Muzzin's working his way back. Joe Thornton's been on intermittently. Wayne Simmons is out. Rasmus Sandin, not a huge contributor, but also out. Like they're encountering issues with their injuries, and that might cost them, and I suspect more in the short term than the long term. But Frederik Andersen, in his contract year, has been a difference maker for the Leafs, and he has picked them up when they need to be picked up. So Andersen rounds out my all-star roster as the second goaltender in the NHL North Division.
Nice. Yo. Yeah, and like you really saw that in that Montreal-Toronto game from last week. There was, the 5-on-3 kind of midway through the second there, and that was the difference, right? They scored with 1 second left. In the 5-on-3, which extended the kind of the 4-on-5 power play. They scored right away. And Andersen, came up big with some huge... they kept doing these weird odd man rushes coming back the other way, and I think that just happens when you have kind of that potent offense. And Andersen bailed them out a couple times. Good job, Freddie. Sorry to hear you're not feeling well, but I do feel like I saw maybe Soup was back in net tonight, so can't... Campbell's.
I didn't know that. As soon as like my wheels were spinning, I was like, soup. I was like, oh, Campbell, that's why. Mm-hmm. And you got it out kind of right when I was crossing that bridge in my mind. So that's a great nickname. I fucking love a good nickname.
Nice. And I did allude to this just a little bit earlier. And I mean, it benefits me. But if you're not a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, going into Maple Leafs Twitter, there's this weird insurgence. And big shout out to the hot girl Maple Leafs Twitter that's going on of like leggings or like leg day selfies to kind of help the boys get some wins. So, I mean, if you're ever bored, there's some very attractive girls out there that get drunk and watch Maple Leafs games and post sexy pictures of themselves. And at one point there was like a boob selfie Twitter day. That was glorious.
So is this related specifically to Leafs fans? How do I come across this?
It is. I follow a couple guys that talk Leafs on Twitter, and they retweet a couple of these girls, and you just kind of hit follow on one or two of them, and yeah, there's weird random hot Leaf fan girl selfie Twitter thing that's going on. I don't know. I like it. So
that sounds honestly like the best. I'm so jealous right now. I'm definitely gonna have to do some digging, especially tonight, Saturday night. I hope this is one of those primetime showings. You know how kind of like 50-50s get up on Saturday nights? I hope that's when we see the best of the best.
Yeah, you need to start some, like, I don't know. I feel like there's, anyways. So that's my other, I think at some point I was talking about Canucks Twitter at some point not being a great place. Like, Leafs Twitter right now, it's delightful. So, but that wraps up headlines. That leaves our all-star games teams. We want to just run through the top. We both have McDavid, Draisaitl, Matthews, and Marner. We both rewarded Mark Scheifele. That gives us 5 skaters, and then the teams differ a little bit. I went with Toffoli, Blake Wheeler, Quinn Hughes, Thomas Chabot, Connor Hellebuck in net, and Markstrom to round out my squad. Grant, who are you rounding out with?
I rounded out with Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa, Mark Scheifele in Ottawa, or Winnipeg, Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary, Petrie, Price, and Anderson to round out my team.
Nice. It's not bad. Not bad. All right. Sweet. So that gives us a good talking point. Maybe it's something we keep track of every couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks. See if they change. Go from there.
It is, and that's kind of one thing. You bring up a good point, because the All-Star game basically recognizes everybody who's had a great year up to that point. But sometimes we see guys come together, like put together big performances later in the season that really build the momentum and help teams carry on in the playoffs. One guy that comes to mind, Marian Hossa. Like, he was a guy who always picked things up at the end of the year. At least in my mind, he did. I know he was an All-Star a few times, probably more than a few times, but and I know that another name is years past, but Brendan Morrow. Brendan Morrow was always a guy who had a good second half of the year. Deserved better than what he got in his career. I think he missed out on a couple Stanley Cups just by like a year, 2, maybe something like that. So keep your eye on team players who we have neglected to mention, but will still have big years. So maybe we should revisit this. We'll do a post-mortem at the end of the season of who our actual All-Stars were to see if there's any differences. There's obviously going to be some names who stick around, but I think there's some here that we can use interchangeably, especially if things change towards the end of the year.
100%. Especially in the next couple of weeks, we're coming up on that kind of the halfway marker. So we'll see kind of where we go from there. Cool. So on to a little My Dirty Fantasy advice. The other thing I used to look at quite a bit when I was doing fantasy, like hockey and pools, was I did like the ESPN Fantasy Rater. So you can kind of go through, click through fantasy hockey, get to player rater. And what they do is they actually give players based on just their performance, like a point total. And you can kind of scroll through that. There are a lot of goalies, but if you do just kind of all skaters, you get an idea. I've got kind of the top 10 on the screen right now. So just top 10 fantasy players right now. I imagine you probably... you know what? I bet you there's like not a lot of like deep picks here. So between McDavid, Draisaitl, Marner, Matthews, Patrick Kane, Darnell Nurse, Nugent Hopkins, Victor Hedman, Brady Tkachuk, Mark Scheifele, that rounds out your top 10. And if we kind of scroll over, no, you can't really see the ratings, but it really falls off a cliff there and kind of just falls into balance round. I'm guessing Darnell Nurse is probably like the low man on that. Like, so if you were to do a draft, right, and you're kind of ranking everybody out, Darnell Nurse is what, probably like 4th, 5th round pick, 6th round? But everyone else on this list is probably like 2nd or 1st or like 2nd round, no?
Yeah, Darnell Nurse is kind of having a sneaky good year. He was one guy that I considered as well for my All-Star team because he fills every role. He does power play, he does penalty kill, he does even strength, and he scores at every one of those strengths. So I would say, and he's starting to get recognition too. Like, we're starting to hear things about the 2022 Olympic team, and Darnell Nurse is names being mentioned. So I would expect if he continues this level of play, and that is just flying under the radar, being productive, not being a liability, actually being like a solid defender, two-way defender, he might sneak his way onto the Olympic team next year. Like, depending on strength and or injuries, like maybe he makes it.
Well, Darnell Nurse, I don't know a lot of Edmonton Oilers that are like homegrown defensive talent. So good job.
Yeah, that's definitely the anomaly.
Yeah. Nice. All right, on to my dirty fantasy. So we kind of looked at what we were doing is we were setting up a daily fantasy lineup. I feel like the one last week I had mid-show got canceled. Had to run it off the top of my head. I don't know if it went well because I kind of lost that live tracker of it. But I do have one for you today. Grant, did you also have a lineup?
Mine is already entered. I think I had a piss poor week last week, now that I think about it, because it's kind of an all or nothing strategy that I have. And that is I key in on teams that I think are going to do well and both bet on them and build my fantasy rosters around them. So, you know what? You take the lead. I want to hear who you got on your roster. Maybe I'll make some late changes to mine before I make mine official.
All right, nice. So starting off at the top, I thought I was kind of working the back end, kind of getting some D-man on there, but I mean, we got Toronto and Edmonton clashing tonight, prime time hockey. I'm hoping they put on a bit of performance. That will be reflected a little bit in my picks later, but I picked McDavid and Matthews, the two most expensive players. I put them on center, which then means I kind of had to go bargain hunting for the rest of the team. So those guys are worth $9,100 and $8,900 respectively. From that point out, I like James Reimer. I like the Hurricanes over the Panthers today, so I picked Reimer in net. I put Sebastian Aho. Somebody's got to score for the Hurricanes for that to happen. So at $7,500, that was kind of my last expensive player, and then just bargain shopping at that point. Philip Deneau, who is the number one center, still listed for the Montreal Canadiens for $3,800. If you're playing fantasy, use Philip Deneau. I realize he hasn't scored in something like 15 games. But it has to come at some point. Like if you're playing top line minutes, eventually something's going to happen. You're going to pass a puck to a guy and it's going to accidentally go in or something. So I like Philip Deneau at $3,800. I think that's just kind of like low risk, high reward with that guy. Zach Hyman at $4,800. Max Domi is going to round up my two wing positions. And then at defense, Josh Morrissey at $4,300 and Jared Spurgeon at $4,400. Again, I was bargain hunting and I kind of just jumped on some names that I saw, but really, I'm really hoping that the two big guys, Matthews and McDavid, lead the way.
Yeah, I like your strategy there. Spurgeon does have a sneaky good potential. Yeah. Minnesota's been good at home, and they are rolling offensively. Like they're just finding a way to put the puck in the net. So Spurgeon might pay off. I went that Minnesota Wild route for my goaltender. I'll start in the back, work my way up. So I went with Kaapo Kähkönen. Kings aren't really an offensive juggernaut, we'll say. Like, they don't come off the page as a team that's going to... In fact, if they're going to win, they're probably going to win 2-1, 1-0, 3-1, maybe, if it's they get an empty netter. So I'm hoping Kaapo Kähkönen on the second night of back-to-back is a big difference maker for Minnesota Wild. Working my way up the ice, Mario Ferraro is a guy who, defenseman for the San Jose Sharks, plays 25 minutes a game. A couple weeks ago, maybe not even a couple weeks ago, he played St. Louis and he put up a line of 7 hits, 2 blocks, and he only had 1 shot on goal. And he's also not their top point getter, but he plays across all strengths. So I think that this guy has a high potential, especially if we get into a high scoring game with the St. Louis San Jose that I'm kind of expecting. So I think he's got some high potential. Another guy, Neil Pionk. So Jets defenseman. He's been their leading points getter over the last couple of years on the blue line. I do think tonight's going to be a scenario where it favors the Jets, just for all those reasons that I listed when we talked about the Habs in the headline section. And that is, I don't think they're responding well to this new coach. Winnipeg just finds a way to light the lamp offensively. And I think that Neil Pionk's going to be a part of that today. Moving forward into utility spots, I also included Paul Stastny, kind of a low cost-ish, mid-cost, mid-range option. Second line minutes, power play minutes. What I'm picturing in my head is I'm picturing the Canadians being able to neutralize that top line, and we're going to see some secondary scoring. So that is lineup mismatches. Picture Paul Stastny as being a guy who can key in on that. So I've got him on the roster for $5,300. Frank Vetrano, who is part of the Florida Panthers, I've seen his name pop up. He seems to pop up in bunches. So that is, he has big producing games and kind of goes back to playing not forgettable hockey, but like he just not as recognizable. So I think he's going to have a good game against the Hurricanes on home ice. That brings me to my top 4 forwards. Wingers, I have Mark Stone playing in Anaheim. Vegas is just going to outclass Anaheim, I suspect. Now that I say that, they're probably going to lose 1-0. But Mark Stone's got a huge ceiling against a bad team in Anaheim. I got P2J skating on the line with Connor McDavid. Both of those guys are on my roster. I don't get why Puljujarvi is always like, he's 4,200, and that's his price on the DFS slate all the time. Like, he is worth more than that. He's got goals in 3 of his last 5. Obviously, McDavid creates a ton of space, and it's kind of, maybe I'm overthinking this, but Justin Hall always neutralizes McDavid, at least the first few times he played this season. So if they neutralize McDavid, and that is they don't give him this time and space to score the goals, he's going to have to find somebody. Puljujarvi is going to be the guy, at least I'm betting on it. Rounding out my squad at center is Nathan McKinnon. Colorado on the second night of back-to-back in Arizona. Their offense is starting to get going. We saw a little bit of that last night. I think they put up 3 goals on 20. It wasn't many shots, but they're starting to create more chances, get back into that brand of hockey that we saw early in the season. I'm picking them to, run away with it tonight in Arizona, or at least, put up a whole bunch of goals in Arizona. Just on the second night of back-to-back, it's going to be a little sloppier. Nathan McKinnon is leading the charge, and that leaves you with, I think it was $100 if you wanted to toy around, but I'm satisfied that I got the best of the best here, so hoping for big things with the DFS roster tonight.
Sweet yo. Yeah, I do notice that Matthews is listed as day-to-day, so just note on that. Keep your eye open, but any of those picks like the McKinnon, you could easily swap out McKinnon for Matthews and use that money to upgrade another position, so just kind of one of those things, keep an eye on it, so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's cool. So then what's going on for tonight? I think the last thing we've got is my dirty fantasy to roll through. So last week, I was doing all right. Like I said, I think I was up about $59 on the year. I went 0-4, so now I'm down $41 on the year. So did not hit a single thing. Shucks.
Yeah, I also went 0-4, and I was going to update the sheets, and I didn't because when I was just looking at my producer's notes from last week, I was like, we both lost all $100. So I guess that's what we get for going in confident, thinking that, hey, look it, we're both in plus money. Universe has a funny way of showing you who's in charge, so hoping for better things this week. I got 4 picks. What are you looking at?
What do I got in total? I got 5 picks. So, dangerous.
All right. Well, let's hear your picks. I got you. Let's see who you got this Saturday night.
So I started apparently in the morning. I like Philly Buffalo, which is going on right now at over 5.5 goals at -115. To round up kind of my over picks, I also have Dallas Tampa, that kind of rematch. I got plus money on the over at 5.5, so they're thinking that's going to be kind of a bit of a defensive throwdown. And then I like the Toronto Edmonton over 6.5 at -110, $20 on all of those, which leaves me with $40. I'm going to put at -150. The line has moved down just a little bit for the Flames. I'm going to put $30 that they are going to beat the Ottawa Senators. And then finally, I mean, that's not really good advice. The game has already been going for 20-something minutes, so I hope I'm right. And looking at the score sheet, well, good for me. And then finally, I like a parlay of Chicago and the Carolina Hurricanes, which at plus 204. I'm going to put $10 on that bad boy to round out my picks for the day.
You love totals. I've tried to get behind totals, and it seems like every time I try to do that, it just like blows up in my face.
Yeah. That 5.5, like you'd be surprised how often 5 goals ends up, and you're sitting there and you're like, really, guys?
And honestly, it's funny you mentioned that because I was thinking about earlier this week. Like I can't tell you how many times. Like even in your example tonight, we have plus money on the over 5.5. Like that's great. It's probably going to end up on 5. So why not just load up on some exact score props too to kind of like mitigate that and say, why don't we bet 4-1? Why don't we bet 3-2? And then you do that on both sides of the coin. You're kind of covered no matter what. Like you're going to be, hey, you know what? I'm going to try that next week. We're going to key in on a few things. But before we get there, we got to start here. I've got 4 picks. Saturday night wouldn't be Saturday night without a few shootouts. I'm keying in on 2, one of which Carolina, Florida. So Florida, like we mentioned, top of the division, NHL Central. Carolina's right up their asses. I think they're sitting 4th, but only 3 points behind. This is going to be one of the best games of the night, I am convinced. 2 contrasting styles. So Carolina loves to run away with it, and that is just let their offense go. Florida likes to play tight defensive brand. I don't see either team running away with this, and when it's that kind of one style versus the other, I can't help but think that we're just going to end up in a deadlock and we're going to overtime. So I have that game going to overtime plus 310 for $20. Another one, St. Louis, San Jose. San Jose is going to be, they need to find more offense, and the St. Louis Blues are a good team that could happen against. St. Louis just hasn't been the same defensive juggernaut that we've seen. They tend to be getting into some high-scoring games. They are correcting a little bit, but I think San Jose's offense is going to come alive tonight. So I have St. Louis, San Jose going overtime for $20 at plus 320. I'm thinking like 5-4, maybe St. Louis in a shootout, but high-scoring game, St. Louis, San Jose, overtime. 2 money line picks, home line or home underdogs. Edmonton opened at plus 100. And money came pouring in on the Maple Leafs. I think they were bought up to like minus 131, minus 135 at one point. Starting to see that reverse. I see now that they are up to plus 102. And actually, they just moved to minus 104 on my screen. So instead of plus 102, I'll do it at minus 104 because that seems to be the price that is available. So Edmonton plus 104. Toronto's dealing with injuries. Edmonton's 5 in a row, 10-12. They're great on home ice. Everything's clicking offensively. Toronto's coming off that tough luck loss against Markstrom start of the week, overtime against Flames. I think it was Wednesday night or Thursday night. So now travel plus injuries plus, luck starting to run out a little bit. I think this is a spot that favors Edmonton. Minus 104 for $40. Rounding out my 4-pack, I have Winnipeg Jets plus 116 for $20 on home ice. What I'm expecting is another flat performance for Montreal. And maybe it's just because I want them to fall flat on their face for firing Claude Julien, and I don't think that they're going to thrive under Dominic Ducharme. But Winnipeg, we've seen what they do on home ice. I'm expecting that to continue. Plus 116 for $20.
Nice. Sweet. Yeah, I like those picks. I mean, I like all Canadian matchups, specifically on Saturday. So the fact that's all we get, it kind of makes me feel like every Saturday is like the most important Saturday of my life. So it's one of those things. Yeah, I look forward to that.
It's funny you mentioned that because even earlier this week I was thinking, it's like Hockey Day in Canada is like this one day celebrated annually where we just get all Canadian matchups. We get that like every day now, especially on Saturdays when we normally get 3. Just because we'll get both Saturday nighters plus, in this case, Calgary, Ottawa earlier in the day. So it's great. It's exciting. I love it. We're going to see you get this until at least June. So drink it in, Mick, because we don't know when this is happening again.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of one of those, unfortunately, I realize we're living in the middle of a pandemic and people's lives aren't great, but remember last year at this point when it looked like when all sports went away and just how bored you were and you had nothing to do? Now every single night you've got this must watch, have to see TV. It's good stuff. Between that, basketball, baseball's right around the corner. Life's good.
Life is good. I just got that, checked my credit card statement this morning, got billed for MLB TV. It makes me so fucking happy. You have no idea.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So with that, I think all we've got is a Babe of the Week, and then we are out of here. So
we do have the Babe of the Week. I just got to key her up because this one came across my timeline. I'm going to spell her name wrong, so I got to make sure I find it correctly. But there she is. We are a hockey podcast. We love sports, but we also love women. And I have found a woman who does it all, and that is the Absolute Canada Puck podcast. Not just Babe of the Week. She could honestly be our representative, not just throughout our lives. Her name is Michaela Demeter, MIKAYLA DEMAITER. Hockey goalie / absolute rocket. Does a little bit of everything, right? Yeah, she's all right. So I'm so glad that the universe has bequeathed her to our podcast. Michaela Demeter is our absolute babe of the week. Schwing!
Applauso. So, nice. Oh, wow.
Oh, the Flames just scored again. It's 3-0 now.
Well, I'm glad I put real life money. Like, I'm not just on my wallet. Like, I was like, that's... I think I maybe put like $5 on the Flames the other night, being like, yeah, just... There you go, throw it away. And then I was really bummed out, and I was like, I'm gonna make back my money in like tenfold next time. So good job, me. I feel like a 3-0 lead, and the Flames never blow those. So,
and yeah, kind of raining on Ottawa's parade today. But you know what? I have money on overtime. Actually, I included this on my shootout ticket, so I'm hoping Ottawa makes a comeback here.
Yeah, let's go. Come on, Brady. We got some money on the line for the charity. We'll get some empty net goals for no reason later in the game. So sweet.
All right.
I think that's kind of it. So I mean, unless you've got something else.
Nope. Haven't tried that horse corn dog yet, but when you come across it, let me know. I did come across a Korean hot dog place. Absolute dynamite, but no horse hot dogs.
Nice. All right. So if that's it, party on, Grant.
Party on, Mick. We'll tune in next week, and we'll get you more money in the DFS and NHL betting worlds.
Cool, yo. Bye.